So we no longer divorce just because we are unhappy, but we divorce because we could be happier. That's a major, major shift when you work with relationships in which there is going to be crisis and distress and illness and death.
So before we get started, I want to establish the way things used to be.
We have shifted from a life that was deeply structured. And structured means that there were tight knots and that we could not leave so easily. But in that communal life, we were given a clear sense of identity, a clear set of rules, a clear set of gender-specific roles, which implied everything having to do with caregiving and illness, by the way, and a responsibility for the well-being of others. And we knew where we belong, and we had a good sense of continuity.
Okay, so this is Esther Perel, and this is a TikTok that she's talking about the difficulties of modern relationships. And I want you to notice the kind of verbiage that she's using. She used words like structure, identity, rules, roles, responsibility. And what she's illustrating is that in the traditional sense, if you look at the macro sense and maybe the town or the organized city or maybe even the race, or in the smaller end when you're talking about a family, she talked about structure. There was a way that things were done, and inside of that structure you had roles and people filled those roles. And if you fill a particular role inside maybe a family, it'd be a matriarch or patriarch, or inside of a town, it'd be a town leader or maybe a religious leader, whatever. You would have an identity that would be generated from the fact that you have a role, and that role means that you have a responsibility to the group. And so this made things a lot easier, and she talked about people knowing where they belonged. And if you look at today's societies, you could look across, you know, cultures or maybe countries. I think you see on a spectrum, you see some societies or some cultures have kind of changed 180 degrees from the way things used to be in their particular cultures. And then you have some who are adhering to their traditional cultures a lot more stringently. And so before we start this video, I want to establish that baseline here. And so now, the current dilemma for society.
From a place of certainty and clarity, but zero personal freedom, we move to urban living, where we have unprecedented freedom and unprecedented choices and options. Everything that used to be rules today is a freaking negotiation. It all has to be figured out. And that figuring out has created the situations where the burdens of the self have never been heavier. With a lot of uncertainty and a lot of self-doubt about knowing what is the right thing to do.
Okay, so here she's talking about how we went from societies that were more structured to now one where we have unprecedented freedom, and we're trying to figure out the rules. And figuring out the rules means that we're adding, I guess we're adding different new rules to society about how we refer to people and what rights are allowed to people based on things outside of what would have been recognized by older societies. And so you have all of these rules kind of up in the air, and the burden of self, as she talks about, is very heavy. So if you think about the Brittany Renner interview, she had the freedom to do what she wanted to in her 20s. And so now she's struggling to try and figure out who is she now. And so not to pick on her in any sense, but when there aren't any rules and the 20-year-old gets to party all the way through her 30s or 20s and has a kid and writes a book about all the things that she did, now she's trying to establish who she is as a person in her 30s, and that's a heavy burden for her. You could see it in the interview. And in the end, she talks about how it creates a lot of self-doubt and doubt about what's the right thing to do. So what has the modern marriage become?
And then we turned marriage from an economic arrangement into a romantic arrangement. And now it was based on affection and on trust. We brought love into marriage, we brought sex to love, and we brought and connected sexual satisfaction with marital happiness. Happiness, by the way, used to belong to the heavens. You suffered well on earth, and if you did a good job, you could be rewarded afterwards. But no, common mortals that we are, we brought happiness down. First it was an option, now it's a mandate.
Okay, so it's interesting she talks about how happiness has become a mandate, but in the modern marriage, now marriage is about romance instead of an economic agreement to make sure that both people can survive and help each other. And then she says sex has become about love more so than procreation or family building. And sexual satisfaction is necessary to be happy in a marriage. So marriage, it is a mandate in marriage now that you have to be happy. And if you don't have happiness, that's grounds to break up a marriage. And remember, she talked earlier about how we're rewriting the rules and we're dealing with this now that there aren't rules or roles anymore. Everything is a negotiation. So one of the negotiations is, if I'm not happy in this marriage, I have every right to break it up and start a new one. And that is there's a relatively new rule, but that's one of the newer rules that we're operating under. And that is something that has led to the modern marriage and the fallout from it. So now for why there's so much divorce in modern times.
So we no longer divorce just because we are unhappy, but we divorce because we could be happier. That's a major, major shift when you work with relationships in which there is going to be crisis and distress and illness and death.
So remember, she talked about how there are roles and rules. And now that we're kind of renegotiating the rules, numero uno rule for marriage is, am I happy? And if you're not happy, destroy the marriage. That's the way it works. And so that, she says, that's a major, major shift. So when people are dealing with interpersonal relationships and you're having a disagreement or a fallout, or even if you're not having the best of times because maybe you just had a child or someone's parent just died, or you're going through something, financial strife, the question that is most central to most marriages becomes, am I happy? Or as she said here, can I be happier? And that is just, in an age where we're flooded with videos from Instagram and social media and television and movies about how great other people's lives are, it is very, very difficult to be content, or better yet, to make your partner content in the marriage. The traditional role for marriage.
Marriage was always a pragmatic institution. It was primarily for children, economic survival, companionship, social status, succession.
Children, economic survival, companionship, social status, succession. Not happiness. There's no happiness there. So now in the modern era, we have many people rewriting the rules for what a marriage should be, and a marriage is, am I happy? Notice you don't see happy there. It's for children. It's for helping each other survive. It's for having someone to live life with. It's something that enhances their social status. Maybe you could use for business and the succession of your lineage, right? And so what I think many people are doing now in terms of modern marriage is they're trying to use new modern rules to make their marriages work when traditionally marriages worked on different grounds. So what are modern women looking for?
Now, what also happens is that intimacy also fundamentally changed its meaning. You know, intimacy used to be we share the vicissitudes of everyday life together, including those that we've been talking about the whole day. But now intimacy is intimacy, meaning that we are going to share with each other our intimate life, not our herds. That's a whole other thing. And that has created a situation where the romantic ideal at this moment is one in which we are asking one person to give us what once an entire village used to provide.
Okay, so she talks about intimacy here, where the definition of intimacy is kind of a romantic, make me feel a certain way intimacy, as opposed to growing close to someone because you're sharing life experiences together. And so what intimacy has become is make me feel good. And I want to feel close, connected to someone that's going to release me from the bad feelings I might be generating because my life is a certain way. And she talks about getting a village worth of intimacy from one person. You see people having these enormous list about all of the qualities that their significant other needs to have, because that person is supposed to be the one that's going to satisfy their full range of intimacy needs. So this is where women overseas, traditional women, are winning with passport bros. You could talk about maybe the fitness issue, that might be an issue, but at the end of the day, I think it comes down to when you see TikToks like these, and this is a list of emotional desires. My ideal partner must be have a good heart and be kind, attractive to me anyway, someone that can be my best friend and lover, partner in crime, brings out the best in me, very loyal, faithful, be able to be emotionally supportive, someone that will lift me up, someone that will grow with me. This is a list of emotional needs, intimacy needs. And remember earlier in the video about when you're part of structures and you have roles and you know where your roles are and you know where you fit in the community, you're getting a lot of needs met from a lot of different places. So what you really look for in intimacy is to connect with someone on a life journey level and not on a fill me up emotionally, intimately level. And so women, modern women, quote unquote, are looking for someone to fill them up emotionally, intimately, as well as doing the traditional things that traditional women are asking of. Let's secure a family, let's have economic survival, have companionship, elevate our social status, and leave something behind for our family. These are the 5 things that traditional women overseas are asking for, and they're happy with it. It's enough. They're beyond happy with it. And if you're part of a traditional society, you don't need all of these things coming from one person. You just need someone that's going to be nice to you, someone who's going to relate to you. You can have kids and they're going to financially support you and your kids. And that's a big, huge win. And you're not looking for that person to fill you up with all these other things emotionally. And so for a lot of passport brothers, it's a no lose. You can't lose. All I have to do is do the things that traditionally women wanted men to do. She'll be happy with that. And I can have a family without worrying that she's going to blow it up because she's not happy with me. And so that's the enormous advantage that women overseas that are traditional are bringing to the table. And that's pretty much the driver for passport bros, to be honest with you. With that said, thanks for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care, guys.